Today, you see a lot of democratic socialists who try to hype up Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his New Deal of the 1930s. Yet, what did the New Deal really achieve? And what are some of the after effects that we are still putting up with today? Chapter 1: Unemployment. In 1933, before the New Deal, unemployment peaked to around 24.75%, or around 12.8 million people. Afterwards, it fell to 16.9%, or around 9.03 million people by 1936. However, another recession in 1937 and 1938 caused it to increase again to around 18.9%, or 10.4 million people. For reference, today the unemployment rate is 4.3%, with the number of unemployed being 7.2 million people. Chapter 2: The Good. The New Deal ensured bank deposits of up to $2,500 for each individual person. They suspended the gold standard. I consider this a good thing because money is a fake concept anyways. The Securities Act was initiated, which regulated the stock market. Prohibition was repealed, allowing people their capitalist copium back. They hired the unemployed. This was limited. They built schools, municipal buildings, waterworks, sewers, streets, parks, bridges, airports, dams, post offices, hospitals, performed reforestation and flood control, brought electricity, roads, and relief to poor rural communities. Drainage, levees, and irrigation districts for farmers were created, and they were paid for conservation, taking the U.S. out of the third world country status before the term even existed. The AAA was replaced with another similar program that utilized unused farmland for soil-enriching crops like alfalfa, which was not sold on the market. Debt reduction and redemption for foreclosed farms was offered. Credit and storage of agricultural surplus was offered, which is good, but this helped to increase the price of food, which is bad. Assisted with drought and water shortage for landlord farmers. Food stamp program to help the poor afford the more expensive food while still profiting landlord farmers. New Deal spending led to improved health conditions and was estimated that for every $153,000 in relief prevented 1 infant death, 1 suicide, and 2.4 deaths by infectious diseases. They established public employment offices, created new family residences and low-cost apartments with pushback from the private housing sector, aka corporations that owned housing. It established Social Security and unemployment insurance. It created the National Labor Relations Act and the National Labor Relations Board, which caused surges in unionization across the country. However, the battle for members between the AFL and CIO unions caused unions' power to weaken. It made transportation of strikebreakers between states and to foreign commerce unlawful. There were a lot of acts and public laws created prior to World War II that protected workers. However, this was due to pressure created by the workforce and not due to the Roosevelt regime. Labor unions got businesses to agree to a minimum wage, lowered prices, a 40-hour work week, and abolishment of child labor. Again, not Roosevelt. There was an outlawing of corporate unions and yellow dog contracts due to union effort. They regulated utility companies, created food quality standards through the FDA and the Department of Agriculture, and prohibited unfair and deceptive business practices through the FTC. There was an abolishment of slums owned by private housing sectors and landlords. As we can see, the New Deal did a lot of good. But wait, there's more. Chapter 3: The Bad. The New Deal cut salaries to government workers and pensions to veterans. Banks reopened under Treasury supervision, and small banks merged into larger ones, also known as monopolization. PWA also laid down hundreds of thousands of miles of road, the highway-freeway system, which helped contribute to the dysfunctional public transportation system that we see today. To those who disagree with this and think it's a conspiracy, then riddle me this. Why didn't they lay down railroad track? Because the U.S. is more expansive than Europe. Great. Lay down more railroad track. But they couldn't build on the land of the landlords. You mean those losers whose ancestors stole the land to begin with? Fuck 'em. Lay more railroad track. They also placed limits on cotton production, which landlord farmers supported since it increased the price. While the economy bounced back by 1937, unemployment remained high at 14.3%. This is bad because a healthy economy only benefits the wealthy ruling class. This illustrates how the preservation of capitalism was prioritized over the needs of the people. Chapter 4. The Ugly. The Public Works Administration built warships, warplanes, military bases, and airfields, building the foundations of the military-industrial complex. They raised food prices by reducing farm output. Side note, in the 1920s, farms became so efficient that they were overproducing food. Wheat was left to rot, and sheep were slaughtered because it was more profitable than paying for transportation. This is because capitalism relies on profits to survive. This overproduction threatened farmers' existence, which led to FDR reducing farm output. The Agricultural Adjustment Act raised prices through artificial scarcity, leading to 10 million acres of growing cotton to be plowed, bountiful crops left to rot, and 6 million piglets killed and discarded. They also paid subsidies to farmers for keeping land unused and taxed food processing. Organized business was allowed by the government to run cartels to stabilize prices within their own industries. A 30-hour work week was rejected, and big business was cooperated with to curb deflation, which was decrease in product, demand, and employment. If you don't understand why cooperating with big business is bad, then perhaps you need more austerity to get the point. The NRA established a series of privately owned governments. The Home Owners Loan Corporation was established that helped finance mortgages on private homes. This is bad because it allowed homes to stay in the hands of private corporations and banks. This is why we have a housing crisis today. Chapter 5. The Racist. The AAA only helped landowners, aka landlords, and did not include sharecroppers, tenants, or farm laborers, who were a majority black, which contributed to the issues we see today with corporatized farms. They reduced the need for whitey landlord farmers to hire sharecropper and tenant farmers, again, who were predominantly black. The HOLC began redlining, which was based on race. Redlining was when they marked neighborhoods as yellow or red, depending on the number of black inhabitants in those neighborhoods. This led to the following. African Americans were denied home loans. Any American could not use the loan in predominantly black neighborhoods. New housing could not be built in predominantly black neighborhoods. White Americans could not sell their homes to African Americans, and this program just backed segregation. By 1932, African Americans faced unemployment rates as high as 50%, while whites faced unemployment rates up to 25%. By the mid-1930s, blacks were 2 to 3 times more likely to be unemployed compared to whites. Thousands of blacks were thrown out of work and replaced by whites on jobs where they were paid less than the NRA's wage minimums because some white employers considered the NRA's minimum wage too much money for that one word that Ronald Reagan was very comfortable using. No attempts to end segregation, and many New Deal leaders were known racists. Most New Deal programs, including the youth programs, were segregated, and blacks and whites rarely worked alongside one another. During the first few weeks of operation, the CCC were completely integrated, but by 1935, they were completely segregated. Chapter 6. The Sexist. Initially, the New Deal did not take into account unemployed, unmarried, or widowed women, or women taking care of a disabled husband. Eventually, the WPA and the FERA employed women, but to unskilled jobs that were seen primarily as women's work, such as sewing, cooking, and art. Chapter 7. The Pointless. FDR instigated a wealth tax that taxed 79% of income for those making over $5 million, which only taxed John D. Rockefeller, and most of the wealthy avoided taxes via loopholes anyways. Swedish bank accounts, anyone? They also enacted an undistributed profits tax, where they thought the profits of the corporations would trickle down into the hands of the workers. Fucking idiots. But they later watered this tax down and then repealed it altogether. Chapter 8. World War II. The War. Only when the U.S. entered World War II did the unemployment rates fall, but this was due to men being conscripted into the military and increased labor in military production, again, laying down the foundation of the military-industrial complex. This had nothing to do with the creation of new jobs or holding corporations accountable for inflation or artificially creating unemployment. During this period, many strikes broke out due to frozen wages, inflation, and internal union conflicts, but the government squashed these down and seized control of the striking factories and forcing workers back to their jobs. How pro-union of Roosevelt! Additionally, arrests were made during these strikes, notably during the Philadelphia Transit Strike of 1944. Union leaders and 300 workers were arrested, with the majority of the 300 being black. Chapter 9. Conclusion. In conclusion, while there were some good things that came out of the New Deal, such as reforestation, utility regulation, and food quality standards, all things that are slowly being repealed today, FDR and his New Deal did very little to better the unemployment rates of the people who suffered the most, while benefiting corporate America with their low fixed wages and fixed consumer prices that these entities did not have to lower, which guaranteed their profits. This period was not only highlighted with racism and sexism, but also created policies and programs that still hurt us today: the highway program, redlining, bank monopolization, corporate cartels, helping landlord farmers instead of creating farmer co-ops, etc. This video was made to fact-check morons like Kyle Kalinske, who constantly huffed the racist, dusty, dead farts of FDR and his dead bullshit cabinet members. They always cry, social democracy, but fail to analyze history in that, 1. Capitalist revisionism never works and will always lead to reforms being repealed by the wealthy ruling class. And 2. Social democracy led to fascism taking over Italy, Germany, and Austria during the World War II era. Read a fucking book. I spoke a lot about unemployment rates before, during, and after the New Deal era, but you know which country had zero unemployment in the 1930s? The Soviet Union. Of course, there were some things to factor into this, yet their unemployment accounted for a little over 1 million people when compared to the US's 9 to 12 million.